Our CEO came in from New York, and we were bidding the job, and I'm there with my executive, the estimated department, everyone's there. They tried to be really formal and give me a hard time, so they call me into the room. All the executives are sitting there, and they say, okay, let's go through your numbers. The executive was covering one trade, I had another one. I was sure that my numbers were right. And the CEO was sitting there, right? And he's like, are you saying that he, with all this experience, is wrong? And I said, yep, I'm right. I know I'm right. So Bill had to go back and check his numbers. Then he came back to me, he's yelling at me because he was right. But they got a kick out of it because that's what you're supposed to do. I mean, that's what we do in our business here as well. You need to challenge each other. If you're right, you're right, and if you're wrong, that's okay. But you go and get after it.
Welcome to Conversations Around the Corner, where we talk to construction executives about who they are and how they got there, inspiring the next generation of construction leaders. My name is Eric.
And I'm Matt. In this episode, we sat down with Bill Abromitis, the CEO of Clune Construction Company, at Clune's headquarters in Chicago. Chicago native himself, Bill graduated from Northern Illinois University and has over 30 years of experience in the construction industry. Clune repeatedly ranks on ENR's top 400 contractors list. In our conversation today, we talk about growing up on the south side of Chicago, working during the 1992 Chicago flood, hunting for pheasants in South Dakota, and being in the right place at the right time. We hope you enjoy the conversation.
This podcast is supported by Con Expo Con Ag. Check out North America's largest construction show, which will hit the stage in Vegas on March 10th to 14th, 2020. With over 2,000 exhibitors, there's so much to see and do during the show. Save 40% on show admission when you register by January 17th.
You sit down on a train or a plane, you're striking up conversation with the person next to you?
You know what? I used to more than, you have to read the signs.
Yeah.
You have to read people's body language when you sit down.
Yeah.
Because if you sit down and they've got like all their stuff there, don't even bother.
Yeah.
Right? And you got other people that are kind of looking at you. Some people don't even say good morning when you sit down, or good afternoon when you sit next to them, which is, I say that no matter what.
Yeah.
But, yeah, most people. And I actually don't want to talk to somebody for 3 hours on the plane.
Right.
No.
I'm exhausted by the time we land.
Yeah.
Although I did meet actually, oh my God, what's his name? The power forward for the Golden State Warriors, Draymond Green. So I sit down on a plane. This could be a good podcast. I sit down on a plane, flying to San Francisco, and I always book, business class because the flight's just brutal, right? And then trying to work. So I sit down and I sit next to this lady. She's dressed up in like jeans and like she's got a bag of candy like you wouldn't believe for the flight. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I in for, right? Yeah. And I'm being nice. I'm saying, okay, you just never know about people. We started chatting, and I don't know a lot about basketball. And it was the playoffs were going on. And I said, what are you going up to San Francisco for? She goes, oh, my boy plays basketball. I'm going to watch him play. I said, who's he play for? She goes, he plays for the Warriors. I go, what's his name? She goes, Draymond Green. I go, oh, is he good? And she's looking at me like, and so I look up on my iPad, and I'm like, is that him? She goes, that's my boy. We had the best conversation. She works with disadvantaged kids out of Michigan in the Detroit area.
Yeah.
And she just started telling me about everything Dre's doing and how she's actually works as a security officer at the junior high.
Oh, wow.
Trying to keep girls from getting into trouble, doing all this stuff. And they all look at her as kind of a role model now.
Huh.
And yeah, we were
best
buddies. Yeah, I said, well, tell Dre he's got a new fan. I said, I'm all over him.
And had you been listening to a podcast, you would have never made that connection. So
right.
There you go. So that's the argument against podcasts.
Right. All right, that's my warm-up.
You mentioned before that you grew up in Chicago, and you grew up on the south side.
Right.
That's an interesting place to grow up.
That's a lot of police officers, firemen, blue-collar workers, and the like. So it's real people, real neighborhood. Yeah, it's great.
Do you feel like you still have a connection to those types of people in the city of Chicago?
I actually golfed yesterday. We had our superintendent's outing yesterday, which is really a collective Chicago golf outing of just our staff. We've been doing it, oh my gosh, we've been doing it 25 years. And we had it on the south side at a place I used to golf at when I was a kid, Glen Eagles. And the kid I was golfing with, I don't think I've ever met him, maybe once. He's one of our new hires in the Mission Cocoa Group. And he actually lives in Beverly. He actually went to the same grade school I did, St. John Fisher. Huh. So when you say I have a connection, you still kind of know the neighbors, and his dad's actually a fireman. Okay. So to say I have a connection, I don't think you ever lose it living in Chicago.
Yeah. There's like a very strong personality type of, I feel like, Chicago police officers.
Yeah.
I feel like they're kind of easy to spot sometimes.
So they're all from your neighborhood?
Oh, they are. I mean, you have South Side, you have North Side, and there's a big difference. And then you have urban. So in Chicago, those three regions, you could tell where somebody's from.
Yeah.
Just talking to them, for sure.
What are the things that stick out to you? The tells of what neighborhood they come from?
I think at the South Side, they have their own vocabulary of words. They invent words. I mean, there's words that, it's really the slang.
Okay.
People may say it's uneducated, but it's really just, you're just kind of talking the way everyone's talked, their whole lives. So grammar might be a little bit fuzzy in that neck of the woods.
What's a piece of the slang?
Like there's a food store called Jewel, right? But on the South Side, you call it the Jewel. There's a the in front of everything. So like, I'm going to the Jewel. I'm not going to Jewel. I'm going to the Jewel. Everything's got a the in front of it. For some reason, you're identified it as the, and it's pretty funny. My middle daughter, when she went to School of Villanova in Philadelphia, they knew exactly where she was from, and then she would always say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to to the bar, or to not the Jewel, or to the whatever the bar it is happens to be there." It was funny.
People I know from out west, they call the highways like the 405 or the.
That's what I was thinking of too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably same type of thing, right?
So, blue collar neighborhood. Growing up, what did your dad do for a living?
So my father actually died when I was 5 years old. Mm-hmm. He passed away from a heart attack. He was a salesman of steel products in the South Side, really further south, like Cal City area. That's back when the steel industry was pretty prevalent out in Gary and Indiana. So a lot of his family was from that. So what little I do remember about my dad, he was an outdoorsman. He was from Michigan. He skied, hunted, had a lot of that in his life. And when he passed away, we weren't a super close family. His family was still in Michigan. Okay. So really, if you want to say anything, I was probably raised by the neighborhood on the South Side, which was our neighbor was an undercover detective. Kind of took me under his wing. He was also a football coach.
Okay.
I think everyone kind of pitches in to try to take the fatherless. My mom we had 4 kids at that time. I was 5, my brother was 6, my other sisters were 3 and 4.
Oh, wow.
So it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like next door neighbor. He's an undercover detective, and he's like, I'm gonna kind of step in.
Yeah, he'd come home in an Illinois Bell truck because he was on undercover.
That was his undercover?
Yeah, at that time we couldn't tell anybody what was going on.
Fascinating.
But yeah, he'd show up, and he was a Chicago cop. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember a specific story about something where he went kind of above and beyond what you would expect a
I remember him
neighbor?
trying to teach me to be a lineman, and I'm probably in 6th grade, and he's a Chicago detective, and he's probably built a little bit like me. You can't see it on the podcast, but a lot stronger and thick. And I remember he and I getting down on a 4-point stand in the backyard, and he's just kind of showing me some moves, and he hits me with a forearm, and I just flew like 6 feet in the air, landed on my butt, and he goes, "I guess you're not going to be a lineman." I said, "No."
That's great. So what did your mom do, especially like after your dad passed away?
My mom, Polish descent, hard worker. My mom always had a job. She actually worked at the mall.
Okay.
Back then, you'd walk to school. We went to Catholic school, and we'd walk. And so she'd take off for work, and she'd work in the catalog department back before internet at Montgomery Ward's, and then she'd be home for dinner for us. So, my mom had a high school education, and she just tried to make ends meet. Obviously we had, Social Security support. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to do what we did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of you and your brother kind of running around the neighborhood, looking after the family, looking after the younger sisters?
Yeah, I think that, the family, we all had our friends. I just came across a photo yesterday, or a couple days ago. I was going through my Apple, and I had scanned in an old photo walking to Beverly Park with our hockey equipment.
Yeah.
So I've got my skates around my neck. I think I was in 6th grade at the time. And oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I mean, we had full gear and we're walking to the park because we skated outdoors every single day, every day.
How far was the park from your house?
Probably 4 or 5 blocks.
Okay.
And we had a neighbor who worked for Kodak. You know, back then, on cameras, people actually took more movies than they did photographs because the developing was a hassle. Well, he worked at Kodak. He would take pictures of the kids in the neighborhood as they traipsed by his house to the park or whatever, and then he would send you the picture on Christmas.
Wow.
He would send it out to everybody. So luckily he did that because we've got all those photos.
And that's the origin of
these
photos,
that, and we had Halloween costumes, you know, and that sort of thing. So he always kind of documented that end of it.
That's a good idea for you guys to start doing it at your house because you get so many people that walk past your house out your window.
Oh, yeah.
You should just start taking pictures of them.
I feel like today it's a little bit weirder, though, right? If you're out there with your camera taking pictures of the kids in the neighborhood, maybe it doesn't go as well in the internet age as it used to.
True.
So you grew up playing pond hockey at the park?
Yeah, and baseball. Yeah, we signed up. You know, my brother and I signed ourselves up for the baseball league, Little League. Came home, told my mom we need $20 because we signed up for baseball. And, you know, he and I love sports. You know, that's what we did. I mean, that was essentially, you know, running around the neighborhood. You know, we didn't watch a lot of TV. I mean, we watched the Brady Bunch and those types of shows were on back then. But I think for the most part, you were out playing with your buddies all day.
Still friends with people from the neighborhood?
I would say not in Beverly as much, although we had talked over time. Yeah. One of them ended up being my neighbor out in Glen Ellen when I lived out there.
Okay.
I'm more friends with my high school friends still.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what high school did you end up going to?
We moved out to the suburbs in Palos and Orland. I ended up going to Carl Sandburg.
Okay.
So I was in the south suburbs.
Yep.
How old were you when you moved out to the suburbs?
7th grade. I did my 8th grade out in junior high in Palos.
Okay.
That was my first organized football when I joined high school. I said, okay, I'll go out for freshman football.
Okay.
And I didn't play lineman.
Yeah. What did you play?
I actually was running back and a defensive back.
Okay.
Actually, they put me on linebacker one year, and I just got run over a lot, but I gave it a go.
So what led to the move out to the suburbs from the neighborhood?
So my mom got remarried. My mother got remarried to another widower who was from Mount Greenwood on the south side. He had a young son, and we bought a house out in the suburbs. A lot of migration was coming really from the burbs or from the city, that area out to the suburbs. It was just starting to get developed.
That was that era.
Yeah,
new development.
Yeah, big push out to the south burbs, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember any like major changes that you felt like you went through when you went from Beverly to the Palos area? As a kid, did you sit there and go,
totally different going from, now, you know, there's difference in Chicago. There's urban city, then there's, you can call it the suburbs of Chicago, which is like the Beverly area where you've got a little bit more grass and backyards and things. But still the city, you walk everywhere, and then you go to the burbs where you have to drive. And I remember when I was a kid going to play hockey in Oak Lawn, and my brother and I would take our gear down to 99th Street and we'd hitchhike because my mom didn't have a car. And we'd always get a ride, and then we'd get a ride back. And I think going out to the suburbs, you know, you rode your bike everywhere, or you needed to get a ride, and you know, back then you could still hitch, you know. So sometimes we'd ride our bikes, you know, not 8 or 9 miles back home, back to where we grew up, and then, you know, to visit our friends and then come back. Yeah.
Harder to bike with your hockey gear.
Yeah, it's a little tough.
Would you do it?
No, not with the gear. We'd have to thumb. No, we'd hitchhike. Thumb it. That's called thumb it, right?
And you never had a problem getting picked up to go to hockey? No.
In fact, you'd get picked up by the nicest people because they were all hockey fans. If you had a hockey stick out there in your bag, they knew you needed a ride, and they'd pick you. You'd get a ride within 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's
Someone
incredible.
give you a lift. Yeah,
that's great. And you still play hockey today?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
What's the adult hockey scene like in Chicago?
It's a lot tighter than you think. Everyone knows everyone who or knows of somebody, and not that you know everybody, but you know enough people that are in the different groups and different skates that we have, and then they all play on different teams. I don't play the leagues, but it's a tight group. I've been skating with these guys, a lot of the same guys for 20, 25 years.
So it's informal but competitive.
Oh, yeah.
So full pads.
Yeah, it's full gear, and we play hard.
Yeah.
And we've got some young talent out there, and we bring in, some of it's great that, we've been doing it long enough that our children, some of the kids are out there skating, and they're really good. And we've seen them grow from, being squirts, and they're, 10, 11 years old, and now they're, some of them gone on to college, and then they come back and skate with us, and they're pretty darn good. But it's a lot of fun.
Do you have a end date in sight, or are you going to keep skating until you can't anymore?
You can't anymore. I would say anybody that plays hockey, it's probably until you can't do it anymore. We have a guy that skates, and he's got to be, I think, oh my gosh, he's got to be 70, 73
is that
years
right?
old.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. But you give him plenty of room.
Yeah.
So you play to the level, and you're competitive, but you're not.
Yeah.
You got to play the right way.
You kind of find a safe equilibrium depending on who's out there and who you're up against.
Exactly. Well, right? You play?
Well, we played pond hockey growing up, then switched over to soccer, and I played in some adult soccer leagues. It's kind of the same thing, right? Like, depending on who you're right next to, you either let them kind of give them their space, or you go in a little bit hard.
Yeah. If you both are equal on talent, you're going hard at it.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they're not as good as you, and vice versa, I don't like it when people give me room, because then I still feel like I'm as good as they are, but they're like, you're not.
So you're feeling that? You're feeling like guys are giving you room now?
Well, I get older now. Yeah, and it was funny because I just got remarried, and I actually skated the morning before my wedding.
Okay. Oh.
So I told the guys, I said, hey, we're going out for breakfast today. This is my last breakfast. And you couldn't believe how many goals I scored. I mean, there was this cone of protection around me. No one wanted to get within 5 feet of me.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been good. So a young guy gives you too much space, and then you go up and you kind of give him the business a little bit and be like, hey, don't do that to me.
I think I just play a little harder on him.
Yeah.
When he comes back down, so that he'll return the favor.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have a lot of young guys that we go after it pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to beat me, and I want to obviously, get past them. So it keeps it competitive.
I love those little informal back and forth things. That's a great part about sports.
And we've been playing with enough of the same people that everyone knows who's going to be on each other.
Yeah.
All right, so football in high school out in Palos. Any other sports you played growing up?
I played baseball. I played 3 years of varsity ball. In high school, I also played some in college. So
you did? You played baseball in college?
Yeah, I pitched and played some hockey in college. Ended up going to junior college, played some hockey there as well. Played some semi-pro ball. And after a while, it just gets to be too much, but yeah.
Growing up, do you remember having any thoughts about career in your childhood, looking around the neighborhood saying, hey, these are what this person does, and that's something that I could do, or this is what, somebody else does, and I could do that? Or
I think that with my father passing away at a young age, and my mom being, in the position she was, and the people that you're circled, you're around, you're kind of thinking, I'm going to be in the trades, or I'm going to be this, because there's nobody there saying, hey, you can go be the CEO of a construction company that builds high rises, because you don't even know it exists, right? And I think that if you're looking at role models, as a young man or a young person, and you could see it here in some of the interns that come through, they're really looking for direction on where are they supposed to go, or what are they supposed to do, and not really having anybody close in the family or somebody take you under your wing. I think you're just exposed to what you see. Mm-hmm. And what you see is where you live.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say that, I painted for a number of years, started painting when I was 15 in residential construction, and learning that trade was great. And I think that, the thought was I would continue to do that, but everyone pushed me. My mom's biggest thing was all my children are going to go to college. Back when you could afford it. It was easy enough to do, and she pushed us to do that. I'd say, at some point, my grades went from pretty good to just average. So, we just kind of went to college, whatever was near us. We were going U of I, Northern, Illinois State. I mean, nobody really looked. There weren't a lot of people looking to go, I want to go to North Carolina, or I want to go to Texas. That isn't really where you came out of on the south side.
Yeah.
You were kind of in the vicinity, Iowa or something like that.
You weren't looking at Ivy League schools necessarily, not on your radar.
Nobody even thought about it.
Yeah.
Right? That was for the other people to go to.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Did you look at college as like a formative experience then, if you went into it with that mentality, or was it just kind of something you did?
I went at it because it didn't cost me anything.
Yeah.
Basically, I had enough financial aid that it was free.
Okay.
I worked the football games. I was actually one of the play-by-play announcer at Elmer's College.
Oh, yeah?
As a freshman. I think I got through 2 games and I was a little too flamboyant and they yanked me.
You got some tape from that?
I wish. I remember saying, "Holy cow, look at that pass," or something. And I see like everyone looking up at me, and I didn't realize they could actually hear what I was saying out there. Because you don't realize how loud it is, right?
Yeah.
But that went well. I think that I went to school. I wanted to play ball. I really enjoyed baseball. I don't know that I was ever going to go pro on it. Myself and a couple of guys from a team kind of migrated out there, were recruited, and that's kind of where you started. My brother was at U of I in the engineering program. He was he's probably a lot smarter than me. He obviously tested a lot better than I did on the ACTs and all that, so he was accepted that I wasn't, and that's where I ended up.
Do you have a coach that was formative in your growing up that you like kind of also took some of that father figure position for you?
You had 2 coaches. Actually, my hockey coach was awesome, Ralph. Ralph was our hockey coach in high school.
Okay.
I don't ask me where they found him. He was a great coach, really knew hockey. He was such a good guy, as good, wholesome, get your S together stuff. He could see through all the BS of the kids, but he took a group of high schoolers, and we played well for him. We played hard for him.
So what kind of lessons did you learn from Ralph?
Ralph kind of teaches you that there's a right way to do things and there's a limit on things.
Yeah.
Like, we could have a beer or 2, but that was it. Like, you're gonna cut it off. This is what is okay to do. I also had a baseball coach, Ron, who was a catcher in the Yankees farm system.
Okay.
Threw his shoulder out, but he was a great coach. A little different. He was an English instructor in high school. He was by the book. He was real serious. He was a varsity coach. I do remember him bringing me in and talking, one-on-one with me. Coaches talk to the group. You had football coaches too, but they're a little bit, hit them. Ron would talk to you a little bit more intellectually about what you're going to do, what the team means to you, what you can achieve as an individual with your talent, tell you what your strengths were, and keep it open and honest. So instead of having maybe a father that you would or wouldn't listen to, you had Ron kind of telling you this is the way things are. He was good people.
He would pull you aside to have one-on-one conversation outside the team and encourage you in what you were good at, or encourage you to get better at things you were bad at.
He'd challenge you. He would say, "You're better than that. You can pitch better than that. Here's what you need to do." He'd say, "Abro, come on, I want to talk to you today." And he'd, get called in the coach's office was always like, "Oh, what did I do?" kind of stuff. Yeah. But it wasn't like that at all. It was pretty low key. All the coaches be there, and you get your accolades at the end of the year, and they recognize you and they pay attention. And he was a good coach to play for.
Did you maintain a relationship with him after baseball?
Not really. I think he was closer to retirement than anything. The area was growing so much they built another high school. So a lot of our coaches that were like the JV coaches all moved over there for varsity coach. So they were all at the new school. So a lot of that got split up by junior, senior year.
After having this experience with these coaches, did you ever have a moment where you looked at as being your duty as something you could give back to younger people, to be a mentor in their lives?
For sure. I wish I did. I had 3 daughters, so they all played soccer, club soccer. I didn't play soccer, but I come to appreciate the sport and the difficulty of it and the teamwork and the way you really have to play the game correctly. It's a lot like hockey. You really need to play your position and be aware how the play develops. With 3 daughters running around on club soccer, there wasn't a whole lot of time.
What club did they play for?
They played for the Pride, Windy City Pride, out in Lamont.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of crossover between hockey and soccer, especially if like indoor soccer when you got 5 guys on the field, because it's almost the same spacing and movement.
And the pace of it's real similar.
Yeah.
Except no gliding on soccer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no skating backwards. You don't backpedal.
That's true.
So going into college, going to play ball, always saw yourself as doing something in a trade. Let's talk about that time, like right post-college.
So I would say this, in college, we all started to look at what could you do when you graduate. I'm not sure kids do that these days. They look at what interests them, and that's what they go into, not we were more of the era, what kind of job I'm going to get when I graduate. Right. So engineering and computer science and all that was like the big push when I was going to college in the late 70s. So I went to engineering. My brother was in engineering. I mean, I always liked, building and just being out, smell lumber, all that. I don't know. I liked it, right? So I thought engineering, I think I'm smart enough to do something like that. My first teacher at Elmhurst College, he's actually a physics major, had his doctorate from Harvard. So he told us he chose to teach at a small school, a liberal arts school, because he didn't want to get caught up into like a big university system. I just loved the physics. I loved the analytical side of it, the problem solving, and I was good at it. I wasn't as good as at some of the other theoretical, the economics and the chemistry, the memorization and things like that. I was more of a physical sense.
Were you strong in math?
I was pretty good at it. Yeah. Some of it was so easy. I didn't quite understand why it was so easy. And then it got pretty hard. I mean, and it was difficult. Fortunately, I didn't have to go too far into calculus.
You had a prof really, really got you into physics, realized, hey, I'm good at this, and then you're like, all right, I can do something in mechanical engineering.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. The whole thought was for me to get a 2-year degree there and then to transfer. It didn't quite work out that way. I ended up playing more baseball than college.
Yeah.
Went to junior college, got my associates, and then went to Northern. And I thought, well, okay, this engineering thing is a lot of, maybe I should go into business. Seems like business, right?
Yeah.
Seems like business. I don't know what it means, but I'm going to do some
pretty
business.
Broad. Yeah.
I'm going to do business. And so we go there, and I think after the first class I took, or two, because I think I took 2 classes, and then I took some computer science, some, oh my God, what was it called? Cobalt or something. Or some kind of with
really
cards.
Old language.
Yeah, you had to punch the cards and all that stuff. That was not me. It was too loosey-goosey, right? And so they transferred to the industry technology department, which was really the engineering department at Northern, and just started into that program. So I had tons of credits to graduate, more than I needed, but not everything I needed in the discipline. So ended up sticking around there for like an extra semester to fulfill the requirements, but I loved it. I loved it.
Still love DeKalb?
I do.
Do you go back to DeKalb? You go to games and stuff?
We go to games a couple times a year. Yeah, see the football games. It's great.
Yeah, it's a good time.
What was their mascot? Were they the Barbs?
No, that's the high school.
That's the high school.
Yeah, Barb City.
Barbs.
Yes, the Barbs.
Yeah.
Barb
Okay.
City. Yeah. They invented
barbed wire.
Barbed wire in DeKalb.
Yep.
That's what they're famous for, but then also wasn't Cindy Crawford from DeKalb or something like that?
Cindy
Those are
Crawford
the two
is also
things it's famous for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We played them in
And
high
Phil
school.
Vassar. Phil Vassar was from DeKalb too, I think.
There you go. All right. You have this experience in college and then first job. What's going through your head?
Yeah, how'd you get did you go into construction right out of college?
So then you graduate and there's no jobs.
Yeah.
It's like a recession. And it was tough. So I started painting for a while. Ended up getting a job for an electrical contractor at Braidwood, Illinois, building a nuclear plant.
Okay.
I was working for the quality control department within Comstock Engineering. And what they were doing was hiring a bunch of college graduates to work in safety department. And we were document reviewers of the NRC documents for cable pulls, electrical terminations, welding. So we went through a bunch of training on that. And it was myself and other engineering graduates from like Wisconsin, Notre Dame. That's how tough the market was. There just weren't enough jobs out there. And then also just some others that didn't have an engineering degree. So there was a group of about 6 or 7 of us there that was our first job. And we were working nights, I ended up having to join the union for some reason. It paid good money. It paid really good money. So, stuck that out for about 2 years.
Do you feel like you had a determination and a grit that some of your coworkers didn't have from different backgrounds? Coming from a blue-collar neighborhood and some of that?
Well, my friend Luke was from Homewood, so he had a little bit of that. He was from a large Italian family.
Okay.
No, I'd say they're all fairly gritty.
Yeah.
I think they were all fairly gritty because a lot of from the area as well. Everyone kind of fit into that. And it was a blue-collar environment. I mean, we were working with traveling inspectors who, they were Harley guys.
Yeah,
These were Harley, these were some people that traveled when they were building all these new plants. They would just go from plant to plant, as they went around. And actually great friends. Ended up becoming very good friends there with a lot of the inspectors who, if you saw them on the street, you'd probably cross the street because you're like, oh boy.
So working at the nuclear plant, where are you living at this point in time?
I was living at home.
You're okay.
So my mom worked mornings, and I actually was working nights. I was working a night shift, believe it or not, like 4 to 11 or 4 to 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
So stayed at home, commuted with my friend Luke to Braidwood. It was a 50-mile ride or whatever it was. And yeah, just stayed at home in Palos.
What was your next job after the nuclear plant?
It's funny. I just sent an email to a friend of mine because we golfed at this golf course yesterday that he and I used to golf at when we were in high school. And he's selling roofs or something down in Florida. And I said, oh my God, he's doing cold calling door to door. Wow. I said, my job after I quit the nuke plant was selling chemicals for an industrial chemical company. I kind of thought this might be an opportunity for me to get some sales experience. Yeah. But the company all they needed was they trained us, Bedford Park Company, small little family company. They really just need a bunch of people to go out and get their message out, do their marketing for them for free. Got it. Huh. And they did a commission basis or something. So I did that for 3 months. I got a little bit of money from it, but it was interesting.
So after doing, document review stuff, you were like, I want to do something a little bit more on the businessy side.
The document review stuff was
tedious.
It was horrible. It was horrible. There was no challenge, right? Yeah.
So you're like, all right, I got to find some other.
I have to get out. So I took this job.
You're a competitive person.
Yeah.
Sport background, and you thought, all right, well, sales is kind of a.
I'll give it a shot, right? Let's see what this is all about, right? So we tried that. I was actually getting married then. Actually left that job, got married, or we were getting married anyway. I worked painting for a while, then I'm like, I got to figure something out. And a friend called and said, hey, would you like to work for me doing estimating for Morse Diesel? We build high rises.
Okay.
I'm like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I think I went and interviewed for that. I also had a friend that was working at the options exchange. And the other option, he said, I think you'd be really good at it. You can come do a runner for me, learn the business, and we'll see where we go. Right now, I think he owns 2 jets and all that. And we still golf, and we're still good friends. But I still made the right choice.
Yeah.
It was a pretty crazy environment back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So we got married, joined up with Morse Diesel, and I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved the long hours. That's back when you could smoke in the office. My boss was, I think there's some questions here about mentoring Muhammad, a little guy, and just awesome. He was as ruthless as you could imagine. Mm-hmm. He was just in your face, and he could swear with the best of them. And you learned how to build a building using the drawings. And I'd ask the dumbest questions because I didn't care. And, I would just get abused. And then he would sit down and show me. And I learned from so many people there, so many great things, and I just loved it. Yeah. I just thrived in the environment.
Any coworkers who couldn't handle the abuse that he would dole out?
Yeah, Mel. Mel couldn't take it, but Mel was timid enough. He hung around.
What was it about that personality that you were drawn to, that you liked? What did you like about that intense
I liked the directness. I just took my DISC assessment. I had to do that for our directors group, so I'm pretty much D, that's me, right? And I didn't take offense to somebody calling me, whatever they wanted to call me that day. I thought it was, from the sports environment, when you grow up in football and baseball and stuff and hockey, you can give each other a hard time and you don't take it personally, right? So I don't think we took it personally. I think that I love the competitive side of it, of bidding, winning the job. I love the learning aspect of it. I love the engineering side of it. And I did a lot of drawing and architectural stuff when I was in high school. I knew how to read drawings. Mm-hmm. I loved figuring all that stuff out. I loved it.
Do you remember a big strategic decision that you made in the estimating department there? You're like, that sticks out to you as hey, I just saved us this much money by...
I do remember that our CEO came in from New York and we were bidding the job at the time. I believe it was... I can't remember. It might have been the NBC Tower here in Chicago, because we did end up getting that. And I had certain trades that I would handle, ornamental metal, this and that and the other thing. And we came in on a Saturday, so everyone was there. The CEO came in because he was going to review the bid. And I'm there with my executive, the estimating department, everyone's there. And, of course, they tried to be really formal and give me a hard time. So they call me into the room. All the executives are sitting there and they say, okay, let's go through your numbers, right? And they're going through the numbers. And, there's scope you have to discuss, who's covering what. And I think the executive was covering one trade. I had another one. And I think, I was sure that my numbers were right. And he's challenging me. And I said, no, I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
And the CEO was sitting there, right? And he's like, are you saying that he, with all this experience, is wrong? And I said, yep, I'm right. I know I'm right. And he goes, I give you credit for that, kid. And he started laughing. So Bill had to go back and check his numbers.
Yeah.
Then he came back to me, he goes, and he's yelling at me because he was right. I said, well, at least now you know, right? No, and then they came in and gave me some more shit, right? Then they were yelling at me about, he was right. I said, all right, you're right. But they got a kick out of it because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's what we do in our business here as well.
You earned a little bit of respect.
You need to challenge each other.
Yeah.
If you're right, you're right, and if you're wrong, that's okay. But you go get after it.
Yeah. You think that's an industry thing in the construction industry, or is that kind of a Clune personality and mentality that you've brought to the company?
It is in the industry. I think less so these days with a lot of companies, and I do think that we do it quite a bit here. Not as much as I'd like, but then again, my disc assessment says I shouldn't do that as much. I intimidate people. So.
I'm not picking up on that at all.
Right.
That's great. I was actually listening to something about how they think we should be more challenging in our information because it creates an incentive for people to be like more right about things. It's like somebody proposes information to you. The first thing you should do is try to knock it down a little bit, just because that's how you whittle away at what's true and what's not true, and how it's actually a healthy process to challenge information that people, I don't know. This guy David Epstein wrote a book about it called Range, and that's neither here nor there. I just was listening to that yesterday on a podcast.
Oh, I'm going to give one of those podcasts a try one of these days. So, I think complacency happens, like what you're saying, is people become complacent about what they see every, day after day, and they don't challenge it. I think you have to look at something every day, no matter how boring it is, with a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to challenge yourself to do that. If you don't, you just run the risk of just glossing over the details or just throwing something to a client that, if they're into the details reading it, they're going to say, why is this person giving me this? It makes no sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Eric here. We hope you're enjoying our podcast. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with someone you know, or leave us a review. If you know a CEO that would like to be on our show, send me an email at eric@conversationsaroundthecorner.com.
So you loved that first job in estimating. You were motivated by all those challenges and the competitive nature of it and the boss and the directness. Where did you move on from the estimating department?
So from there, fortunately, by then, the industry had kicked in, and we were building all these buildings around town, and we were winning a number of jobs. 500 West Monroe. We had the NBC Tower, as well as the NBC Studios, which ended up being my first job I worked on, which was a big infrastructure interior job. We had a number of projects in the city. So I had the benefit of being a young person. Timing's everything, right? I had some background. I had support within the company. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and they were going to give me a shot to do something, right? So my first job was to go work on NBC Tower building the studios. And, you're interfacing with the head of the facilities group for NBC, right? You're out in the job trailer next to the river there for, good year and a half, and you learn so much. You learn so much about building a high-rise building, and really that's the hands-on stuff. And it was great. It was great.
What was your role? What was your exact role there?
I think I was support. So I'm doing all the shop drawings, APM,
Okay.
Assistant Project Manager, APM, generating that, keeping the minutes, doing the contracts, change orders, bidding other small jobs as they came in.
Okay.
Basically doing, PM role.
Okay.
And Ray, you said?
Yeah, my good friend. So Ray was the main project manager for the job, the client contract.
A little bit more seasoned. He had a little bit more of a veteran.
Yeah, he was like 2 years ahead of me.
Okay.
He actually worked in our group for a little while, but he had a CM degree, and they moved him out there. Yeah. His personality was a little better for that.
Long hours again?
Oh my gosh,
job trailer?
Yeah. I used to swim at like 4:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And then drive to work from the burbs.
Okay.
My buddy and I decided we're going to train for a triathlon.
All right. Which one?
The Chicago Triathlon. Yeah, he did it. I just trained with him. I told him I trained with him just because it's boring to train by yourself.
Yeah.
This is a thing we've found with a lot of executives is that time in their life, they're like, early 30s, late 20s at that time. Young families are starting, and they like hold on to the working out very early in the morning thing. Like the 4:30 getting up and swimming, I'm in it right now. It's like what keeps me sane a little bit is to get up and like do something. Mm-hmm. And then like I'm just like better all day long at work because I got a little bit of that like aerobic out. Yeah, we've heard that from a whole bunch of people. It's like life gets really crazy in those years, and especially starting families and stuff.
Yeah, as you get older, it changes. So now I can work out in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
We have a gym membership for the company. So the morning is a cup of coffee with my wife and walking the dogs.
There you go.
Yeah. That's not at 4:30 because I live downtown now. It's at 5:30, so I still get a little bit extra sleep. I do enjoy that too.
So yeah, life is 100 miles a minute. At that point in time, you got young family.
Yeah, a growing family. So we had, oh my gosh, was that? I'm gonna guess my daughter was born there in that time. Yeah.
What year? What time frame was that?
Oh my God! So she was born in November. I think that was the first. Yeah, we just bought a house. So we just bought a house, in a small little ranch in Glen Ellen. And Amy was born. The other kids were coming. Yeah, working hard. Yeah, it was pretty nutty. Yep, and I drove every day to work because we parked on site. I mean, we just drove. Yeah. So that was, it was long days.
Do you remember any biggest failures from your first couple of years? Anything you messed up?
Yeah, I try to think back on some of that stuff. The biggest failure that probably young people do is they think they know more than they do. They actually do. And they don't take the time to maybe appreciate the knowledge of those ahead of them because you kind of feel that you've figured this out. I think having the boss, Muhammad, grounded me or didn't allow me to do that. He told me how stupid I was.
He wasn't going to let you get away with that.
I had no idea. Yeah. And then you start to get it. I think as far as mistakes go, I got a funny one, but I also, I don't know if I made any major mistakes. I think the system's set up that you really can't, you can't really screw up that bad, unless you were just ignoring something, you really wouldn't screw up that bad, right?
What's the funny one?
Oh, we were doing the USG building. I actually got put on doing the skin, the exterior of the building, as well as the steel and concrete and stone and everything. And there's a mechanical pit that was covered in dry-vit to save money. They aren't going to put stone there. I mean, to save money. And we kept, we had to put the paint additive into the dry-vit. We were getting on the winter. So I kept asking the owner, what color do you want it? And he says, and he would put it off. I mean, this is going for 2 months. I said, we have to put this in tomorrow. We have to get this going. And he said, well, I'll just make it kind of look like the stone. I said, just have the architect send us the color and we'll put it in. He said, and they're like, figure it out. So I picked the color. No, and I didn't do it on purpose, but I picked the color that I thought would match the stone. Yeah, you guys are laughing. You don't, right? Men should not pick colors.
No.
Right? No. So they put it on the well, and goes on for 2 weeks. Owner comes back. He goes, what the hell did you do? It was pink. No, literally, it was pink. And I thought it was we had a pinkish stone on the building. Maybe it would match, and it was horrible. And he's laughing. The owner knows. He goes, okay, I'll pay you to paint it. So the next week, we're having an owner's meeting, and my superintendent who was doing it stole my hard hat. You've seen our hard hats, and you can put stickers on them, right?
Yeah.
They had covered it in dry-vit. In that pink dry-vit, except for where the stickers were, and they presented it to me at the meeting.
That's great.
That was a beauty.
That's great.
Yeah, Joe works for us now. I actually hired him about 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, nice.
He's a super.
And that was the guy from the owner.
Yeah. No. This is my superintendent.
That's your superintendent. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so the timeline-wise, just real quick, I wanted to hit on. You said the first day during the flood. The Chicago flood.
Yeah, it was 1992. I had to go back and check.
Okay.
Yeah, April 13th, 1992.
And which job was this?
That was so when I left Diesel, then I went to LaSalle.
Okay,
Partners.
so this is after.
This is after Morse Diesel. I stayed with Morse Diesel, did the high rise. He said, "Listen, there's a high rise, I'm going to do it from the ground up. That was the deal. I wanted to do from the caissons till we were done.
Yeah,
cool.
Right? I could always say I did a high rise, right? Next job we were working on was United Center. After we won the job, I left. It was better for me to move on. And then started at LaSalle Partners in the construction group. First day is when the tunnel gets pierced on the Chicago River. All the buildings, half the buildings downtown are flooded from the old coal tunnels. They used to use those to feed the boilers for the buildings.
Yeah, just for the listeners, do you want to recall some of like that story of just what happened, and do you remember it?
I just remember we were in 11 South LaSalle, and the power goes out because they've got to shut it down, right? I mean, the tunnel's flooding, and your mechanical rooms and electrical rooms are downstairs in the basement. So they say, okay, pack up all your stuff. We're going to the job site. So I said, that's fine. We'll go to the job site, which is 231 LaSalle, which is the Continental Bank building at the time. And sure enough, I get there, and water's like rushing in to the basement down there, and our superintendents and stuff are down there. The bank can't go down, right? This is a financial institution.
Yeah.
So they're down there slinging sandbags, trying to detour the water around the gear, the electrical gear.
Yeah.
And so we say, well, we got to help, right? So we get down there, and we're grabbing sandbags, we're flinging them, and pretty soon we realize, if this hits the gear, it's not good, right? So and we rushed the non-essential personnel out of there. But we saved the bank. They stayed up and running.
Do these tunnels, they actually connect to the basements of all the buildings?
Yeah, they actually run through, they actually started using them to run all the telecommunications cable throughout the city. So they pierced a tunnel, which I think was, it might have been on Washington or just down here somewhere. Once you hit one, they just started racing through. All the older buildings had them underneath it.
Oh,
so
goodness.
Really, they were all connected like that.
Yeah, I read that it was kind of this like gray area because the city, apparently a lot of the city maps didn't have them formally there. So, company doing the work said, well, you didn't provide us with drawings that showed these things. It became like a legal
about who who actually owned the tunnels too.
Right, exactly.
I don't think the buildings owned them. It was
it got this there's this kind of gray area and got kind of dicey in the legal stuff. So you're flinging sandbags. You're trying to save this bank from going down, and that's your first day.
That was my first day
on a new job.
And then we never left. I never went back to the office. Just stayed at the job site. We were rehabbing the entire building there.
Okay.
And I stayed there running those projects for probably the next 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
So this is like a huge thing in the city. There must not have been enough crews to go around to do all the repair and rehab work of all these basements,
Yeah,
right?
so the rehab work was like a separate deal. And then we were actually doing the construction on the building. We were actually rehabbing the rest of the building.
Okay.
And they had old air handlers from the 50s. Asbestos, all that kind of stuff. So we were gutting the floors and redoing them in the program fashion. So there's 26 floors there. We did all 26 floors.
Okay.
How long were you at LaSalle Partners for?
Well, that morphed into Clune Construction. So in 1987, so we did a number of projects. I did all different things and different program work, cool projects at 605. I'd actually Virgin Records when they had, remember when they had, not the DVDs, the CDs?
Yeah.
Virgin Records, you can go put headphones on and listen to them and then buy them. Yeah, we did the store there.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the formation there and around the details of
I think Mike met with each of us. There was 5 of us original partners. I want you to be my partner. I want you to be part of this. And, we're going to have you get X percentage of the company, and here's how we're doing it. And right now, to us, I'm like, I'll sign whatever you want because it's worth nothing.
Yeah,
right.
And
it was a nominal, buy-in. I'm like, of course, we had to put our house up for, on the bond. My wife at the time didn't know that. I said, just sign this. It'll be okay. Don't worry. Things will be fine. We wung it a little bit, and we figured nothing to lose.
Yeah.
We'll just do the best we can. And I think, we had the right players in there. We had the right mindset. We had the entrepreneur mentality. We wanted to win. I hate to lose. And we're going to give it a go. We had some great ideas. We had a good foundation and started building from that.
Do you remember that first big job that you won after you made the split?
Oh, gosh.
and you just kind of went, oh, all right, this is what we've been wanting.
I don't think it was quite like that. I don't think, because we were still a known entity here.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it was just more or less our business kept growing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we just had to get our own systems in place because it went from having all that back end stuff from a corporate sense to doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
So part of that was figuring that out, and part of that was, okay, how are we going to do marketing? But I think that we kind of each ran our own little groups, and then we would go out and hire our own people, and we just we kept doing work for the same clients. It just kept growing. Mm-hmm. We had more opportunities. So Mike was right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from the beginning of you going from assistant project manager to being a person that is invited to become a partner in a new venture, what allowed you to separate yourself from peers who weren't able to kind of make that ascent?
You had to tough out the hard years of the BS because it's not smooth sailing. I mean, there's a lot of personalities involved and a lot of egos. I think you have to just set your mindset and go straight. And I actually would say that Muhammad, who's since passed away, but I remember him telling me, I'd still call him back for advice, because he's still part of the industry. He knew Mike Clune, and everyone knows each other. And he said, "You stay there." He goes, "I know this is hard." Rig had left and moved on to something else, and I'm like, "This isn't going so good here, right?" This is pre-Clune Construction. This is in the LaSalle days. I just moved. I was a pretty loyal person. I didn't want to be jumping around. I mean, it was only my second real job in the industry, right? And I just thought, I got to stick this out. I think there's something here. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to stick it out. Because I came from a very difficult subcontractor environment to one where you're embracing your subs as partners to build. And it was a different mindset. So I knew what the other side of the fence was like if I wanted to try it again. And I wasn't quite ready for that.
Talk a little bit about the different interactions with the subcontractors between Morse Diesel and then LaSalle Partners.
It's adversarial. The base building deal is adversarial. I mean, I had to be honest. I had to be forthright. I mean, either we bought it or we didn't buy it. If you need, and it wasn't always like that from my bosses. Right? They would just say, they should have known. And I'm like, I got deposed. I went to court on some lawsuits.
Oh, wow.
And that was just the normal course of business.
That was course of business.
That
was course of business, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys had bent over backwards and helped me out and taught me so much, and then I'm going to go and screw them.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You think that's the nature of the type of building being done, or is that the nature of the firm?
At the time, it was the nature of the firm, and that was it back then. I don't think it's like that these days with all companies. I think there's some great firms out there that operate as partners with their subcontractors. You have to.
Yeah.
At the time, that's what it was like, and I didn't want to go back to that environment because that was way too stressful.
Yeah.
So it was like, do I want that stress or do I want the stress I have now?
Yeah.
And I go, I think I can deal with this for a little bit longer.
Okay. So some leaner years, but you were really loyal. You stuck it out. You were there in all those moments, and you think that's a big part of why you were there to become a partner and then to kind of continue on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was pretty good at what I did.
Yeah.
I made money. I was pretty good. I mean, I did a good job. I paid attention to detail. I mean, I knew their systems. I knew how to build, and I knew, I was probably not the best manager, probably see, but I had to learn that a little bit. And we had friendships there. You had a lot of people you were close to, and you were, in the trenches with them, and developing those friendships again. It's hard to leave those. It's hard to leave those when you're close and you're just starting to grow the company together. Mm-hmm. So, and I liked everybody. We went on trips together. We did things together. So it was fun.
Is there anything you've done over time to develop your management ability and skill? Like if it wasn't something that came super naturally to you, obviously if you're leading a company.
I think that what really happens is that, everyone learns how to adapt to maybe what they're not so strong at because it's survival, and you need to be, it makes you a better person. So I think that you have to make that choice to maybe change your behavior a little bit.
Yeah. Is there anything you encourage up and coming managers here?
So Charlotte's sitting here and she's saying he hasn't changed.
Right. She's like, you could go to a couple more seminars.
Yeah, I learned the old school way, and you had to change that.
Yeah.
There's some stories I won't tell, but yeah.
Do you do any emerging leader development stuff?
I did a Vistage group.
Okay.
And that's not reflective. I've done a number of these disc surveys, and they're all the same thing. I mean, they're not telling me anything I don't already know. I think that as you mature, you look at your position, and you need to make sure that you're doing what's best for the company, not what's best for yourself. And I think that's what happens. The further you go in operations and management, the less you're just on your own and with your team. You really need to contribute in a bigger way. And I think that as our companies developed, it was still run pretty tight when we first started. We still kind of run our teams and part of operations, but not really into it, right? It was still kind of our own deal. I think that as that emerged and as we became more, you see you're more effective operating a different way.
You still bring young estimators in and compare their numbers to somebody more senior, and then in a big group
we
meeting
do.
like that?
I had someone, I try to grab a little project here and there and try to go through it with somebody. I had someone in my office last week, and I asked him to read a couple sentences on this. I said, read that. He read it. He goes, yeah. And I go, read it out loud. And he read it again. I go, what type of English is that? He goes, you're right, that makes no sense. I said, I know.
So you're still providing those lessons a little bit. You respect that kind of process, and
I think email is overused, and especially younger people think that they could just. You have to know who your audience is when you're emailing people.
Yeah.
We had an intern that sent an email out. I actually had an intern contest, right? Yeah, I had the intern contest, right? I invented the intern contest, and they were all going to give me information. Some of it was questions about my background. And what I was trying to do is get the interns to look at more than just what they're being asked to do. It was more about who the company is. Do an estimate for me. Show me this, and just send it to me. And I'm going to give. They were going to get a prize, right? I forget what the prize was. I forget what I said it was. And one of the girls came back, and she asked the question. I think what I came back and said, or when the interns came back, I said, "Okay, why would you ask me that?" And the right answer is to ask on behalf of all your interns, because you think I'm just going to share it with you. And I didn't really quite say it like that blunt, but it was more or less, you need to be looking at the bigger picture, because if you help everybody, that's a bonus for you as a young person trying to make an impression. It was funny to see the responses, because some kids came in, they didn't do any preparation.
Yeah.
Other ones did a whole lot, didn't make any sense, but that's okay. And no matter who presented to me, they got a prize.
Yeah, okay.
So whoever actually submitted it still got a $100 gift certificate to the Clune store, so they could buy some Clune gear or whatever.
That's cool.
I don't know where that came from, but anyway, that was a little tangent. But
well, I think it's like you valued these experiences of being strong and tough, and a little bit of a, hey, I'm going to teach you a lesson here, and that's part of something you saw valuable in your upbringing.
I just try to look at it like the owner would look at it. If the owner looks at that, they see that, that's your reflection of our company. You should be a reflection of what you do. And if you don't understand it, why would you give it to somebody? Like if they ask you the question, what does that mean, and you can't answer it, then why did you give it to them?
Yeah. You have any broader thoughts on generational things between when you were coming up and the people coming up these days? I mean, I'm picking up that maybe you do have these types of...
I would say that the folks coming up these days, for the most part, are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I think that their ideals are a lot more worldly than we were, our generation. I think that they're looking at things in a broader sense. I do think that we provide an environment here at Clune that's more family. It's family first, right? Family first, and then work comes in after that. Your health, your family, and you need to all be copacetic, otherwise you're not going to be happy. Mm-hmm. So I think that when folks come here and they intern or they start to work and they've come from somewhere else or not, they start to see that it's different. And it's different in the sense, I'm not saying other companies don't do some of that, but they could always come talk to me in the office. They may not, they may be afraid to, but they can call me Bill. I mean, they don't have to call me Mr. And, I try to get out to all the offices and make sure that I try to know people and see them. And I think that we try to be inclusive of that. And I think that it allows the young people to kind of grow in the sense that they need to do things differently than I did. And I appreciate that. I mean, you can't do it the old way.
Yeah.
Have there been any major shifts in the last 5 to 10 years where you've had to shift the culture of the company because of younger generations coming in?
No, I think we always had a pretty good culture, and I think that we've, like yesterday, I leave the golf outing early. It's not my place to be there when everyone's having. I could hang out with the best of them, but there's a time and a place for the kids to be together, like I was when I was younger, and to enjoy themselves without the boss sitting there. And I don't think of myself as a boss, but obviously they do. So give them some room.
Sure.
Maybe that's the thing. You got to give them a little bit more room than we used to get.
Yeah.
Right?
Mohammed ran a pretty tight ship, and it's a little bit different these days.
He was great. I tell you what, he was great.
Yeah.
I learned so much from him and others there that your first job really teaches you a lot about the industry and how to build. And if you're talking about construction or whatever job, I guess, if you could really learn the nuts and bolts of things, in my opinion, and how the industry works, number one, if you like that, then that's where you're supposed to be.
How different is the construction industry around the country? So if you go do a building in Dallas versus a building in Chicago, are there major differences, or is it pretty consistent?
It's different in the different markets. Each market, I say, has its own personality and its own way of doing business. Believe it or not, D.C. and Virginia, it's very political. It's a political environment, and it's political down to the way work gets awarded and who talks to it. And this is not public work we're talking about. This is private work.
Yeah.
It kind of permeates the industry. New York, a lot like Chicago, but a lot more hard-nosed. But good tradesmen in New York, good trades here in Chicago.
Yeah.
I think that LA's got some good union tradesmen, but San Francisco is a whole different animal. The people out there and our staff are all great, but each region's different.
Yeah.
Each region's different.
Do you feel you have an advantage in the Chicago market, growing up on the South Side and being a Chicago kid?
Not a doubt.
Okay.
Not a doubt.
Huh, interesting.
Do you have becoming CEO? That's like a point in the career timeline that was a big deal, right?
I can walk you through how we kind of. Yeah.
Is there anything interesting? Do you know, were you up for the job against one or two other guys?
I don't think it was like that. I was the last man standing, maybe. I probably fit what we needed at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that becoming CEO or whatever position you look to go into, you're kind of already there by the time, right, you're being appointed or asked to fill that role. I don't think I had my target set on it. Believe it or not, that's not what I like doing the most. I like building. I like giving the projects, and that I would just want to do that. But you kind of grow into that role, and your partners are around you, and you got to look at who your support team is and how you can make the company better. It's always about the company. If you can make the company better, then everyone will be happier.
Yeah.
And I think we looked at that.
Was there a job that you had to give up, or a role that you had to give up when you became CEO that you missed?
So I was president of Chicago and CEO.
Okay.
And Mike had always been CEO and president, but we didn't have 5 regions at the time. So then I became president of Chicago, which is actually pretty easy. And I was kind of in charge of operations in company sense, but more on the East Coast and the West Coast because they had been established. Yeah, and then once I became CEO, then I realized I wasn't a good president and I wasn't a good CEO. I had to cut bait, but it took us a while just to kind of get ourselves organized here in Chicago to make sure I could make that switch.
What was it about being the president role that you really enjoyed that you don't get to do now as CEO?
I don't sit in operations in Chicago anymore. I don't sit through, the day-to-day, what we're bidding. I know what we're bidding. I know what's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't sit and make the operational decisions about how we're going to go after things here in Chicago. I'm involved in it, and I do insert myself at times, but you have to let those that are running the office manage the office. Yeah. If I start stepping on their toes, people start coming to me, and that just diminishes what they've been entrusted to do.
Do you ever felt like you won business because of your South Side cred? Just connecting with another business partner who maybe had a similar upbringing?
I know I've lost business because of it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe, what, is there a story there?
No, I almost got like an argument with one of our owners. I did get an argument in one of our presentations. Yeah, in front of a whole room of people. Him and I were going at it.
He did not like putting the word "the" in front of Jewel.
I don't know if that was it.
Just Jewel.
We got the job in the
Jewel.
end. We'd been friends a long time. We were kind of getting after each other in the
Okay.
meeting, and everyone's like sitting back, oh my goodness, what's going on here? But yeah, we were both pretty deep personalities there,
Okay.
but we worked it out. It's fine.
Going from the operations side of things as president of Chicago and then transitioning to CEO, what was the biggest surprise or biggest challenge that you had to overcome?
Mike's relationship and then Mike having to transition out, and he knew he had to.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to give something up.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't so immersed into the banking and a lot of that side of the thing because Mike had handled it and CFO, prior CFO. So I was not on the day-to-day stuff like that. So I had to learn that a little bit. I also think that on the regional management, in tandem with us, the team, but Mike had hired people in different regions that were loyal to Mike. And I don't mean they weren't loyal to me, but he had a relationship with them. I don't want to say loyal.
Yeah.
I had to get my own relationship with everybody.
you build that.
And it takes time, and we've done that. And it wasn't easy. That was a tough one. That was tough.
How do you go about building those relationships?
You have to be honest. You have to listen. I got to change the way I manage. You have to really listen and be empathetic to everyone. You think you know everything, and you don't know half of what you think you know. You got to look at people as people. Let them do their thing. You don't know what they're dealing with behind the scenes. Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, should we run through some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
All right. How many hours do you sleep a night?
I try to sleep 7 to 8 hours these days, believe it or not. 8 is better than 7.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's pretty good.
And those are sober hours. Sober hours, right? Yeah.
So you got to cut it off earlier in the day.
Yeah, right. Or you need more sleep if it's not sober, right?
Okay,
yeah.
I'm admiring your boots. What's the story behind those boots?
Oh, really? I didn't wear the red ones today. I got these in Cheyenne, Wyoming, on the way to an elk hunt in Utah.
Oh, okay.
I drove out there by myself, and I decided to stop in Cheyenne. I'd never been there.
One of those roadside boot stores?
No, it was in the town. It was October, and they had a snowstorm, and it was a homecoming parade for the University of Wyoming, and there were so many horses and stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna just check this out, So I parked the truck and walked around, ended up buying a pair of boots. I'm actually heading out in a few weeks to an elk hunt out in New Mexico. I got to find myself some new boots.
That's awesome.
So you're an outdoorsman.
So how do you get into? So elk hunting is normally not something that a South Side Chicago kid gets into. How did you get into that?
You know what? I love the outdoors. I loved fishing. It started with that. I had a college roommate that took me to Canada duck hunting.
Okay.
And that built into pheasant hunting. We did some projects for some Secret Service. Guys became good friends of ours. One of them was a big game hunter. So as a group, we're all friends. He says, you got to try this. So we all kind of went out and did a hunt. And it's so much fun.
Yeah.
I don't care if I don't shoot anything. It's so much fun.
Yeah. I
awesome.
deer hunt and I pheasant hunt. I've never done elk before. Do you bow or do you take a gun?
Rifle. I'm not a bow guy. I don't need another hobby.
Yeah.
They're out there, but I should show you the elk they just took down. This place, this is my third time there, and I've turned guys onto it.
Yeah.
It's 5 years running, even the guys I miss. We filled the camp this year. 50,000 acres of
that's awesome.
private land.
Well, the other one that's a gold mine is if you can figure out a farmer in South Dakota who will let you just walk onto his land and pheasant hunt.
I've done that.
And I know a handful of guys who know a farmer, and I cannot get the name of the farmer from them. I've known the guy for like 10 years, and every time I see him, I ask him, and hoping he'll slip up one of these times.
So a friend of ours, we went out there early. We go to South Dakota hunt every year. We used to, I'm doing 2 this year, but we decided to go a few days early and public land hunt. And we had no idea. We just got some maps and went and tried it. And you go out to what you think is public land, and it's barren, prairie, right? Yeah. But we found a couple of good spots and hit some birds, and we were sitting in a cafe having lunch, and roadside, middle of nowhere, right? So we just we asked the guy, you know anybody let somebody pheasant hunt? And he said, Jim. Yeah, Jim might. He takes the money for the church, maybe. So we drove down. He told us, there's no signs, right? You go down about a half mile, there'll be like this on your right, you'll turn left, then take another right. We pull in the guy's farm, and he's got a couple rows of trees, this big farmland, and there's pheasant everywhere. We're like, oh goodness, right? So we go up, we ask him, oh yeah, you go ahead. We heard like you take a little money for the church. Yeah, whatever you boys think. Go have a good time. There had to be 300 or 400 birds jumping out of
That's wild.
It was just me and one guy, so it was hard to get at him, but we got our limit within about, 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So we're done. And there were birds flying all over his house. They're jumping like chickens out in the field. And we go up to the door and he says, how'd you do? I said, well, we did pretty good. He goes, did you see any? I said, how could he not see them? We're shooting like crazy and they're flying around his house. So we each gave him $50 and he near about had a heart attack. He said, you boys come back anytime you want.
That's awesome. So did you take a dog out there or did you guys
just
walk the
I have
fields?
a dog. Yeah.
You have a dog?
Yeah, a couple dogs. So.
Do you train them yourself?
I do, and I have some folks help me. I have a hunt club out in Elgin that I belong to.
McGraw?
Yeah.
We used to belong in McGraw.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a cool place. McGraw's a cool place.
It's awesome.
Where do you go for ducks?
McGraw, we have a draw. We had a draw last week.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually had a club out here, but I just don't have the time to do it yourself stuff. I just need someone to set it up. I just don't have time.
Yeah. Wow, good connection. What's the best book you ever read?
One of my favorite books I ever read was East of Eden.
Okay.
Because my daughter gave it to me. And she told me it was her favorite book. My daughter, Carrie, gave it to me. And she signed it and gave it to me for my birthday. And I would tell you, if you asked me to read a book, that would not be one I would pick. It was awesome. And I read the whole, it was a good book. It's a long book, but it was good. I read a lot of history and things like that. And military books, I like a lot of that.
Okay.
Self-help books, I like a lot of, I like just about everything.
Favorite movie you've ever seen?
Okay, I love Westerns, so actually I was a big Dirty Harry guy, back in the 70s, but actually one of my favorites is The Outlaw Josie Wales. Probably not your classic movie.
Yeah.
I'm not really into the cinema like my buddies were, but
Yeah.
I could watch that anytime. I like that one.
What's your favorite Chicago restaurant?
That's hard to pick.
Yeah, there are a lot of good ones.
It's like, what do you want to eat?
Right.
And I think living downtown now, I know more. Topo Gigio on Wells is really good, as well as Piccolo Sogno, which is over on Halsted, is a great for Italian.
You ever do the stuff on Randolph Street?
Yeah, there's some good ones down there. They got the Girl and the Goat and all that sort of thing. It's hard to get in some of that.
Yeah.
We called it a squad dinner with my wife and her two boys and her best friend. And we would go out once a month and we'd pick somewhere to go.
Yeah.
We'd go like for fried chicken we'd find the best fried chicken in Chicago.
Yeah.
And they got like $1 hams beers on tap there. And you get like 15 wings or 15 drumsticks to eat. It was great.
Yeah.
So the steakhouses are great too. I love Morton's actually on Rush.
Really?
Yeah, I think they have a good steak.
How about what's the first website you check every day? Do you have that go-to website?
I don't
Nothing?
check any.
Okay.
I might do my LinkedIn on Mondays. The weather. I don't really. For me, I kind of get bored.
Yeah.
I want to get to work.
Do you read Cranes at all? Do you get the...
Every day, I
So you
get
read
the Cranes. Yeah, I read through all that. I read the Wall Street Journal. I get that delivered here, and I try to look through that.
Okay.
Spend some time. I used to read it on the train when I commuted, but now I just spend a little time in the office doing it.
What's something that you believe that few others do? What's an unpopular belief you have?
Something that maybe differentiates you from other CEOs.
That's such a broad question. I would say that I really believe that you have to give, and this is probably what, I don't know other CEOs, so I couldn't really tell you, and I know some are really good, but I would say that you really should give credit to those around you. I don't need the accolades.
Yeah.
In fact, I feel uncomfortable when I get them. I'd rather just give the rewards to those who dug in and really made it happen.
Yeah.
I will say this, I don't like when people try to take credit for things they haven't done.
Sure.
Or they think they did.
Yeah.
That kind of irritates me, but sometimes I bite my tongue on that.
Yeah.
That usually comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote?
I like that Winston Churchill quote, without effort, if you don't fail, you're not trying.
Yeah.
Pretty much that's what it says. And about the man in the battle, with the blood, the sweat, the grit. He keeps getting knocked down, but keeps getting back up. I just love that quote. If there's no effort, if it's easy, you're really not doing your job.
Yeah.
You need to get after it. Not every day, because that's exhausting. You got to pick your moments.
How do you balance, or how have you balanced work life over the years? Has it been an easy thing? Has it been a struggle for you?
I think you went back to it when you're young. You're swimming in the morning. You get to kids. You got work. It's hard to balance. I think that we offer the opportunity here to make sure your family's first. So, you got to go home and take care of soccer practice or being your football coach or whatever you're going to do. Do it.
Yeah.
Just do it, because it'll be over before you know it.
Yeah.
And people told me that, as much as you don't want to believe what they're saying, it's true. So you listen to them.
Yeah.
And I did it.
Yeah.
And I would say that was a good balance. I would say now with the travel is very difficult. I don't think people realize how difficult travel is. They think it's glamorous. It's just another thing to do, and it takes you away from your home. You can't go pick up your laundry. You can't, whatever you want to do, you can't do because you're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, Sunday I'm going to New York. We have a grand opening in New York for 200 Park. We just finished the first phase of a wonderful job, the entrance in the Grand Central Station.
Okay.
A really, really big job for us. I actually flew back from Bermuda for the interview when we got the job. But I would say that I'm actually probably going to take off Tuesdays and work from home one day a week now.
Okay.
My stepson's got hockey. My wife's runs a business, and she had a nanny for years. We don't need a nanny. The kids in high school. I mean, actually, a helper, get the kids around. They both playing hockey. It's like they're all over the place, right?
Yeah.
I think Tuesdays got practice. I can work from home and manage that. I've missed the last 2 Tuesdays because I've had stuff going on and I'm traveling, but trying to just work that into the family. And I think you have to take time off. And I think we don't punch a clock. You're expected to be here on time and to do your job, but if you got to go home early or you're sick or you got something, take your kid to school its first day. I mean, do all that stuff.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, you were at work at 7,
Right.
and I left at 6 or 7.
Right.
And that was it.
Do you wish you would have had some more of that flexibility when you were raising kids in school age?
For sure. It was a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. Oftentimes it seems like a lot of executives have tried to carve that out for their current employees, which I think on net is a good thing.
You have to allow that to happen. You can't carve it out for them. You have to allow it to happen.
Right.
Now you have paternity leave, right?
Yeah, right.
There's no paternity, right? You took a couple days off and made sure everyone was okay. And your mother-in-law came over and you went back to work.
One of our managers is in the middle of that right now. Anything we miss? Any other good stories that we really want to hit?
Other than I've been so fortunate and blessed to have all this happen.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the better books I read was the one about being in the right place at the right time. It was about Microsoft, like how he started the business because he did the name of it? But it was
It's not Tipping Point.
Yeah.
No.
Tipping Point's a different one.
Yeah,
but this, maybe it was. But it was the one where pretty much if you're in the right place at the right time, you have the right skills, and you're all of a sudden, this is the most obscure thing, but it's working for you, right?
Yeah.
And you see an opportunity, you just keep moving with it, and next thing you know, here you are, right? And I think that can happen to anybody, but you have to put yourself in that position. And I think that if you strive to put yourself in with good people, in with smarter people that are smarter than you, and don't be offended and don't be intimidated, just do it. Get in front of them and be part of that group. And if you fit, you'll know it.
Yeah.
And people will embrace you and they'll start to work for you.
Yeah.
Whatever your idea happens to be, try it. You got to try it. If you don't try it, I remember my mom growing up saying, you can be anything, right? You can be whatever you want. I think all parents say that, right?
Right.
But, you start thinking and you start to believe it. And you'll know when I'm not going to be a professional baseball player. I'm not going to be a pro hockey player. But, I can be really, really good at what I was doing, and I really liked it. Mm-hmm. So I fell into the perfect job with the perfect people, and I was surrounded by just a group that, made me happy. I wish I was more mature through the whole process, but I wasn't. But maybe that was what made it okay, too. Part of that was part of it.
Part of that's
Who knows?
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks for listening to Conversations Around the Corner, produced by Wallprotects, the designer and manufacturer of wall protection products for healthcare, hospitality, or any commercial building. Be sure to subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher and tune in next week where we will have another conversation around the corner.